Hi, it's Lisa.
It's Karen.
We're in The Hague. We're here for a few days.
Yep, and hopefully they'll be able to prescribe some medicinal cannabis oils with THC for Murray and Cole. So today, the second doctor we went to, he has given us an emergency appointment for tomorrow. So fingers crossed we're going to get this medicine.
Morning, everyone.
Morning. So we're checking out this hotel now, and we are heading up to see the doctor. Just left the clinic and we've got a prescription. Honestly, like, unbelievable. Like, we're so emotional right now. I'm getting a great cry. I can't believe it. Unbelievable. We've got it. This is going to help our kids, hopefully. Our next hurdle is getting back to Edinburgh.
Customs, here we
Getting back
come.
to customs.
So let's just check the bag in.
And we're standing in the queue for security. We met to board the flight home. Hi guys, so that's us back in Edinburgh. We got through no problem. So we're going to start our boys on this medicine tonight.
First dose as soon as we get in. 2 hours before their other meds. It's getting better.
Yep.
This is Murray. He's 6 years old. He has Deuce syndrome, a rare and difficult to treat form of epilepsy.
He lies in a hospital bed, he can't move, he can be awake, but he's probably not aware that anyone's there. He can't swallow, he can't eat, he can't talk, he can't move, he can't do anything. So he just lies in a vegetative state, he can't do anything at all.
You just have to sit and watch this?
Yeah, just have to sit and watch it, and then if he has a seizure, we'll just have to comfort him as best we can.
What you're about to see, you may find distressing.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Has it got to the point where you've just thought, well, I'm going to have to say goodbye to my child here?
Yeah. In January, I honestly thought that was going to happen. I honestly thought that's it, he's going to die. How can anybody survive this?
Mom. Right, tell me. Say, I love you. Yeah.
This is Cole. He's also 6. He has focal epilepsy. Like Murray's, it's hard to treat. Both boys suffer seizures, which can cause brain damage.
And when he takes these seizures, I mean, how long do they last? How many does he get? How damaging are they?
Cole was taking up to about 16 a day at his worst, and he takes most of them through the night.
Lisa documented some of Cole's seizures. You may find what follows upsetting.
He'll convulse, he'll click in his mouth, his eyes will roll back, he'll drop to the floor with no notice, and his body will go rigid, and these can last up to 2.5 minutes is usually the longest.
What's that like for you as his mum, watching your child go through that?
Awful. It's the most heartbreaking thing to watch, and 2.5 minutes has never felt so long when you're watching your child take a seizure. And you're timing it and you're thinking, if it goes on longer than 5 minutes, I need to phone an ambulance. It's just terrifying. Watching his wee body shake. Cole had never had a dream because he didn't get to sleep long enough or deep enough to ever have a dream.
Part of the heartbreak for both mums is that for much of the boys' lives, they were active and alert. Although they were developing more slowly than other children, they were happy.
Did you like the fireworks? Yes.
But moments like these have become less and less common as their conditions worsen. Both mums know that doctors have tried everything possible, drugs, even brain surgery, to try and lessen the impact of the epilepsy. But they say nothing is working.
It's like one minute you have a healthy little boy, and the next they're lying in a hospital bed close to death.
And you've tried drug after drug?
Drug after drug, nothing helps, nothing has helped.
Did you think you were going to lose him?
Yeah. Yeah, I've never felt that for 6 years, but in these last couple of months I've never been so scared that that was it for Cole.
Professor Helen Cross is a leading paediatric neurologist. She works every day with some of the country's sickest children, whose epilepsy doesn't respond to existing treatments.
Epilepsy is a condition where individuals are prone to recurrent epileptic seizures. This means an involuntary change in movement or behaviour, the direct result of the change of electrical activity of the brain. It is a symptom. There are many, many different causes of epilepsy, and therefore it's a group of diseases. 60% of individuals with epilepsy may be controlled with regard to their seizures with standard anti-epileptic medication. 30 to 40% continue to have ongoing seizures despite our standard treatment.
One mother said to me, I just feel like I've been watching my child disappear from the world.
I think it can be very, very difficult for families. They see their children having recurrent seizures, and if they have very frequent seizures, there's no doubt that they may appear switched off for many periods of time. And, you know, when they're not making the progress that you may expect a normal 4 or 5 or 6 or even older child to make, then that can be particularly difficult, particularly when you see other children of a similar age making good progress.
Getting your new medicine? Me.
This is Murray last summer taking a cannabis-based medicine called Epidiolex. He was given it by his NHS consultant because other medicines had failed to control his seizures.
Is it nice? Patrick, yesterday?
For a short time, Murray had fewer seizures. But soon his mum said his condition was as bad as it had ever been.
Epidiolex was the only thing that worked up to that point. Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant, but it just, after 3 months, it just stopped working for some reason.
Professor Cross led the clinical research into Epidiolex in the UK. She prescribes the medicine to some of her patients, but knows it's not a wonder drug.
For some, it is a treatment and a way forward. But it's very difficult to predict who that's going to be and who that's not going to be. But I have also seen equally a number of disappointments because families see that this is going to be the miracle and it makes no difference to their child's epilepsy.
Really?
Yes. It doesn't work for everybody.
There are two main parts of the cannabis plant that could be involved in treating epilepsy. There's THC and CBD. Epidiolex is made from CBD. THC is the part of the plant that gets you high. Until recently, medicines containing THC weren't legally available.
Hi, Alfie.
The case of another boy with severe epilepsy, Alfie Dingley, helped bring about a change in the law last year. It looked like desperate families would finally be able to get medicines containing THC prescribed on the NHS.
For the first time, doctors can legally prescribe some patients with medicinal cannabis in the UK, though restrictions remain tight.
It's now March, 5 months since the law change, and Murray's doctors still won't prescribe THC. Karen believes this drug is the best chance to save her son and is determined to get it for him.
This is the next step, and I can't sit back and watch my son being this ill, knowing there's other kids out there taking this medication and it's helping them and it's stopping their seizures. I've got to try this. I've not got a choice. I've literally not got a choice.
Okay.
My worst fear is that he just stays in hospital. That's how it's going to go on. In hospital, every 24 hours getting sedated, then lying shaking when he's awake, then getting sedated, sleeping, then waking up and shaking. That's no life for anybody. But you would put your dog down if your dog was like this, and they're allowing this to my son to be like this, and they won't let him try this medicine. No, it's not going to happen. I've not got a choice. I have to help him.
The cannabis medicine Karen and Lisa want for their boys is legally available in Holland. In March, they travelled there to get it on prescription.
We've got it. This is going to help our kids, hopefully.
Our cameras caught up with Lisa the night she came back with the drug. Cole is home from hospital. This is Bedrolite, the medicine containing THC.
This is Cole taking his first dose of medicine. Head back, tongue up, tongue up. That's it.
I've been desperately wanting this medicine for so long that when the doctor finally said he was going to give us a prescription, I literally jumped across the table and hugged him and cried. Now we're home and he's just had it, and I'm just desperate for the results to make him better. I just want my boy back.
What's so funny? Hmm? Nothing?
Without a specialist doctor here willing to prescribe the medicine to Cole, former police officer Lisa feels she has no other option but to take the law into her own hands. She's smuggling the drug from Holland, illegally.
I can't believe I'm now that person. I was a police officer for 10 years. And I've then just walked through the airport and seen police officers I used to work with, knowing that I'm about to pick up my baggage that's got an illegal drug in it, which is just like so far beyond my imagination, I can't tell you.
How can it be that some parents are willing to break the law to get their hands on this medicine, while the doctors who treat their children are squarely against it? I've come to Northern Ireland to meet a family who might help explain that.
Danielle, Sam, from BBC, nice to meet you. How are you?
Danielle's daughter Sophia also has a rare form of drug-resistant epilepsy called Dravet syndrome, and like Cole and Murray, suffers from severe seizures.
There's been a couple of very, very bad ones. If the seizure lasts more than 20 minutes, she's in a status seizure.
Which means what? That she's...
So status seizure is a seizure lasting more than 20 minutes, and they are the ones that we can potentially lose Sophia in. So the emergency meds we administer at home, they don't stop it. Whenever she arrives at the hospital, all the meds they give her, and eventually they will induce your child into a coma to try and stop it. And if they continue, they could potentially pass away from it.
You've been told that?
Yeah.
Danielle has given us a video of Sophia having a seizure. What you're about to see, you may find distressing.
You're okay, my darling. Sophia. Sophia. Right, I think we'll transfer over to that bed. There was once she came out of a seizure and she looked at me and she just said one word, and honestly I did break down. She said to me, "Mummy, enough." And my heart just sank. And I was like, I know, darling, it's just not fair. How do you explain to a special needs child exactly what's going on? And for Sophia, it is like a second that, you know, she understands because she's had it from a young age. She gets excited to go to the hospital for an appointment because she sees the staff as like her friends. And a child shouldn't feel like that. She doesn't really know much difference.
This is Sophia being rushed to hospital last summer, suffering a severe seizure. She was put into an induced coma. I'm on my way to meet Sophia. But the girl who I see walking out of school is a far cry from the one I've seen in the videos.
Hiya, Mommy. Hiya, sweetheart. Did you have a lovely day?
I never expected to see you walking out of there after everything you've been telling me.
Oh God, love her. Some days she comes out and the coat's hanging off the shoulders and she's had a really, really busy day where she's had PE, outdoor play, soft play, and all her therapies. So,
is this a different girl than
oh, it definitely is.
Yeah.
As well as her usual drugs, Sophia's been using medicine containing THC for just over a year. And Danielle believes it's the THC that's made a huge difference.
So without medical cannabis, she would be where?
God forgive me, probably in hospital right now. And that's just the be all and end all of it, or she'd be lying in that bed.
Really?
Yeah. She would either be wiped out from the anticonvulsive drugs that she was getting prescribed on the NHS before, that were making her lie in a corner. As I told one of the consultants, my daughter is not going to be sedated and left to lie in a corner just so it's an easier job for you. As cheeky as that might sound, that's how I felt as a mother. Well done.
2 baby shots.
You want to cut a waddles? Oh. Good woman. I'm so proud of her.
She's so proud of her.
It's 3 weeks since their first trip, and Lisa and Karen are back in Holland. They're here to restock. This time they've allowed us to follow their journey. And it's about to become clear that it's not just being smugglers that's putting pressure on them. Buying the medicine is costing them a fortune.
1,780 euro. We're not in a hurry, so.
That's more than £1,500. The mums have fundraised to pay for the medicine, but the money has nearly run out.
Thank you so much. Thanks very much. See you again. Bye.
But we're going to need to start looking at £3,000 between us every month.
We're going to have
1,500
to
each.
start fundraising seriously.
Yeah.
So we'll give up. I mean, we will give up holidays to get that medicine for our kids anyway.
I'd sell my house.
Aye.
I would. I can't let them get sicker. I need to get them better, and there's nothing else for it.
We just need to keep going. We just need to find the money for somewhere and help them.
A week earlier, Lisa and Karen joined a protest in London. Families are angry that despite the law changing 5 months earlier, doctors still won't prescribe the medicines Lisa and Karen are smuggling into the UK. Alfie Dingley's mum, who helped secure that change in the law, is leading today's protest.
There's not been one new prescription issued since the 1st of November when the law was changed. Many people are suffering, many children are very, very sick, and their doctors are denying them prescriptions because they're telling us that they cannot and are not allowed to prescribe this medicine to their patients.
The Health Secretary for England, Matt Hancock, arrives. He's quickly cornered by angry parents.
Excuse me, Matt Hancock. My son's on Epidiolex.
Hold on.
And it seems they're getting their message through.
I've heard enough to know that something's got to change, okay? And so please, I want to hear the stories, and I want to hear directly from you, okay? But let's try to work together on this. And I understand the frustration and the pain and how difficult it is. And I can't imagine how, especially when it's there within your grasp, and when we all thought this problem was solved in the autumn, what I do have is the ability to make sure that the right questions are asked and the right evidence is brought to bear, and that's what I'm going to do. And now I really do have to go. Thank you very much. Okay, nice to meet you.
Despite the law change, across the UK, only 3 families have had an NHS prescription for medicines containing THC. None in Scotland.
The families know that they are allowed these drugs by law. The doctors know that they could be writing these prescriptions if they wanted to, but they're not. The families want to know why. I'd like to know why.
I've come to London to find out more about doctors' reluctance to prescribe THC. They say they can't because there isn't enough evidence that it works or is even safe.
To get it free on the NHS have to agree to pay for these products. They're only going to pay for products where there's evidence of efficacy and safety, and there wasn't evidence of efficacy and safety. So even if you prescribe the product, the NHS isn't going to pay for it. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is that clinicians are only going to feel confident about prescribing medicines which they know to be efficacious and safe for their patients, and that evidence wasn't there. And so there's going to be a reluctance on behalf of the clinicians, I think, to routinely prescribe these products because there isn't that evidence of efficacy and safety.
The problem for doctors is the medicine that Lisa and Karen are giving to their sons has not yet been studied in properly controlled clinical trials. There is some evidence that it can help with epilepsy and reduce seizures, but there's also evidence it can cause seizures.
You know, if we look at data of individuals taking full cannabis, and particularly with the THC, there are concerns about the cognitive effects of THC. In a group of children with complex epilepsy where they've already got a degree of learning and behaviour problems, to add a component that we don't know whether we need for a start, or indeed its safety, is something we feel is not the way forward.
Mike Barnes is a retired neurologist and the doctor who wrote a prescription for medicine containing THC for Hannah Deacon's son Alfie. He's convinced the doctors refusing to prescribe the medicine have got it wrong.
So when these experts in paediatric medicine, paediatric neurologists say it is not safe, there is no evidence of efficacy, they're wrong.
They are completely wrong. They may be expert at paediatric neurology, and I don't doubt that for one moment, and I'm not a paediatric neurologist.
Well, see,
but they're not expert at cannabis
but what
medicine.
you're saying is that, yes, they may be experts in paediatric medicine and paediatric neurology, but they're not experts in cannabis. You
right.
have become the expert in cannabis, but with respect, you are not an expert in paediatric neurology.
I'm an expert at cannabis medicine, and that's a very specialist field, and I think a lot of other doctors need to get that specialism, and then perhaps they'd understand more about the drug and the fact that there is some evidence, not enough yet, but there is evidence of efficacy. So that if they say there's no evidence of efficacy, they're wrong.
Okay.
It is safe, generally speaking, particularly the high CBD products, not the high THC products you get on the street, the high CBD products which counteracts the effect of the THC. It is remarkably safe.
Edinburgh. Murray's been in hospital for 11 weeks. After being seriously unwell, he's starting to be more alert. That could be because doctors gave him powerful drugs to bring him round. But could there be another reason? Karen's been giving Murray the smuggled medicine containing THC for the last 4 weeks. She's on her way to the hospital to give him another dose. She says she hasn't told the doctors.
The hospital can't help me do it, basically, because they've got to obviously protect themselves and protect the nurses. Yeah, I don't want to get anyone into trouble, basically, so I don't really want to say any more. Apart from, yeah, it's me that's doing it, so I've got to do something to help him.
You were giving it to him while he was in hospital, kind of drawing the hospital curtain around his bed and giving it to him. Some people will watch this and I think believe that what you're doing is irresponsible and you are effectively conducting experiments on your child.
Well, yeah, it's like using my child as a trial.
As a guinea pig?
Yeah, the only thing to that is I could argue that there's other children that are using this oil and it's helping.
I know families are desperate. I understand families are desperate.
But do you know families are doing this? Has this come as a shock to you?
No,
or
it doesn't come to a shock to me.
You're aware of this?
Yeah. Well, I don't know individual families, but I am not surprised knowing that there are families going abroad to obtain. And I try where possible that if any family sat in front of me saying they want to do this, to dissuade them from doing that.
Why?
And because I don't feel we should be doing it without careful medical monitoring and intervention. You know, we need to monitor these children, we need to assess these children, we need to know what other drugs they are on to make sure that what they're taking is appropriate and the drug interactions. You know, the safety of the child is what's first and foremost. And giving them something that we don't understand or we don't know what they're having, and we don't know, I mean, in the short term, they may not be seeing any problems, but we don't know what's going to happen in the longer term.
The Gibsons also had to face the decision whether or not to lie to Sophia's doctors. They moved the family to Holland last spring to try medicine containing THC. When they thought it was helping her, they wanted to bring both Sophia and the drug back. They spent months getting a license to import the medicine, which meant they could legally give it to their daughter when they got back home.
I mean, you have deliberately done everything, or you took the conscious decision that this was going to be done playing by the rules, above board, at every step.
Yeah. Reason being, we had spoke to a solicitor, and he said, look, if you try and come back from Holland with this, you know, it essentially then becomes a social services issue. So, yes, we were desperate. Do we want not just Sophia taken office, but also our other child, Mason?
Was that a real fear? I mean, was that
it was because
a real, genuine fear?
Yeah.
Do you think they would have done that? Taken that level of interest?
We honestly didn't know. Well done. It was a case of, yes, they knew about us. High five, good woman. They knew about us. And we were always very open and honest. We told them the dates we were going, where we were going to, sent them the scripts back home, everybody that was involved. You know, Department of Health and everything, at each and every single step, we were always open and honest. But it was still in the back of our heads. They could make an example of us.
But you were not smuggling it back into the country?
No.
Because some of the families that we've spoken to and met, that's what they are doing. Can you understand why they feel they have to do that?
Because they're desperate and they're frustrated and they're watching their kids slip away every day. I can understand that frustration.
Yeah.
And why it would drive a mother or a father to want and go and get that for their child.
I mean, one of the most important things for this family has been the relationship that they've managed to build and maintain with the doctors treating Sophia. And it hasn't been easy. It's been battle after battle, she says. But they got there.
Dunleary, on the outskirts of Dublin. I've come here to meet Bláthnaid McCoy, an Irish doctor who works in Canada. There, doctors can and do prescribe THC to epileptic children. And that means she can keep an open relationship with her patients.
If I'm taking care of someone's epilepsy, then I should be managing all of their medicines. You know, not 80% of them. Another doctor who might not even be a paediatrician, never mind paediatric neurologist or have epilepsy knowledge, is prescribing their cannabis medicine. And this doesn't make any sense. I think if we know that families want to try this and their kids are appropriate to try it, and we're managing all of their other medicines and we're checking their blood work and making sure everything else is safe and being as safe as we can, then I think it behoves us to manage that piece as well.
Dr. McCoy doesn't think THC is right for every child, but at least she knows families can tell her the truth about what they're doing. Across the water, can doctors be so sure?
We would advocate that any parent tells the clinician who's looking after their child exactly what they're giving to their child.
I think they're frightened to. I think
There's
there
no
is
reason
a bit
to
of
be
fear. Well, I think there is a bit of fear because I think parents have said to me, what if they call the police? What if they go to social services? What if they say, I'm no longer your child's clinician?
So I just want to know what the child is taking so that I can actually factor that into what I'm doing for the child. There are drugs that we may use legitimately which will interact with cannabis-based medicinal products. It's much safer if we know what's going on than actually if parents don't tell us. And we're not trying to be critical of parents in that sense. It's just we need to know what's happening for the best interest of that child.
Just how complicated that can be is clear back in Scotland. When Lisa first gave Cole the medicine containing THC on top of his existing drugs, he had more seizures and had to go into hospital. He couldn't walk unaided and was fitted for a wheelchair. But gradually, over a few weeks, the seizures reduced. Cole returned home and was able to stand.
Look at this. Can I get a thumbs up?
It's now a month since Cole started taking the cannabis drug which Lisa smuggled in for him from Holland. Today, Cole has a surprise for his mum.
You're at a wee bit, though. Careful.
Okay.
You showing off? Are you?
Let go.
Don't. You're going to give me a heart attack. Right, sit here nice and watch the TV.
That's what you get.
Giving me a heart attack. Right, I'll see if I can find Ben 10. That might keep you occupied, will it?
So, you are show off.
I'm a show off. You're the one trying to walk. Mr. Man. You're the one trying to walk. There you go, your favourite. Who do you think he's going to be in this one? Charizard? Is that Pokemon actually? I think it's Pokemon.
Okay.
Who's your favourite Ben 10 guy? No, sit nice, Cole. No, sit nice.
No.
Right, sit nice and watch Ben 10. No, you're going to... Right, come on. Come on.
Help.
Look, your wee legs. Here. Oh, right, careful, come on.
No.
No, Cole. Right, stop it.
What's that like when you walk?
Oh, it's just amazing. But he continues to surprise me every day. The same way the deterioration went daily, him coming back seems to be daily, tiny bits, bit by bit. The problem I've got with Cole is he's determined. So he's never going to lie down to this, ever. And he's not realising how much he still can't do, so he's pushing himself to his absolute limits, which is great for me, because I know he's never going to just kind of take it. But yeah, it's amazing to see him starting to try and walk. It's just unbelievable.
He's a fighter.
Oh, he's definitely a fighter. Definitely a fighter. He's stronger than me. Because at one point I was breaking and he's still going, and he's the one that's been so sick.
It's also a big day for Karen. After almost 5 months in hospital, Murray is finally home.
Put your legs on.
And his mum says he's a changed boy.
This isn't a coincidence. And this isn't me going, oh yes, this medicine's going to work and it's working and it's all in my head. This isn't all in my head. In fact, one day last week, my lovely husband, forgot to give Murray his afternoon dose of medicine. And Murray had a seizure at 7 o'clock that night, out of the blue. So as much as I was very annoyed at him for forgetting to give him that dose, it was actually a good thing, because it did actually show us that this medicine is actually doing something. It is actually stopping these seizures.
Some of the parents, they are reporting to me that the seizures have slowed down and they are seeing their children come back.
This is the problem with trying a medication without a randomised controlled trial or without a trial methodology.
But they would say to you, that doesn't matter, my child's now talking. My child is taking steps. And that's what they're telling me.
I'm not taking away any benefit they may see, but we know from other studies, for example, when the medicinal cannabis story first broke, particularly with regard to complex epilepsy, Colorado in the United States was one of the only states where it was freely available. Some parents could obtain it, others moved to Colorado to obtain it. When they did a study as to who demonstrated the most benefit, you're much more likely to get a benefit that was reported if you'd physically moved to Colorado than if you'd lived in Colorado all along. Now, that does suggest that there's a degree of investment for which you've got to justify.
So what you're saying is that these parents want it so much that perhaps the difference is what they are seeing, and maybe there is no difference.
There may be a component of that. I'm not saying in some children there may be a difference seen, but some of them, I have seen it within the cannabidiol studies where parents report he's more alert. You know, there's no change in the seizures, but he's more alert. He may be less anxious. You know, there are all sorts of components, which is why we have to look at it in the appropriate way.
But is this transference from the parent to the child? The parent's more relaxed. The parent wants to feel better.
Possibly.
Are you seeing the miracle stories that we're hearing about, that we're reading about?
Well, I mean, in short, no. Have I seen some families where, you know, the seizures have gone away completely and they've had significant improvement in their development? Yes. Have I seen that with every other drug that I prescribe for seizures? Yes. So it's another option. It's good to have more options. You know, we went from having, you know, 2 drugs for epilepsy a few decades ago to now having over 20. And we're still pretty stuck with a third of the kids continue to have seizures no matter what we give them. We have diets, we have surgery, we have implantable devices and all kinds of things now, but we still have a good percentage of kids that continue to have seizures. So we need more therapies. We need new drugs.
Is there a place for medical cannabis in these children?
Yes. Yeah, I believe so. I think it's a very complicated drug though. It isn't a single drug. And we need more research to better understand exactly what should be in there.
Some desperate parents aren't willing to wait for better studies. They say their sick children need help now. I've spoken to one Scottish family who've told me they're getting cannabis oil with THC, not on prescription, but from a dealer on the black market here in Spain.
Hi, it's Sam from the BBC. How are you doing? Not too bad. Listen, it was just to say that we're outside the bar. All right, thank you. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye. I've managed to make contact with someone here in Spain who I know is supplying medical cannabis illegally to families back in the UK, and they agreed for me to come out here, and they've promised they're going to take me to where they manufacture the oils. So I'm just, I think that's there at the cafe.
I meet her at a bar in a town in southern Spain.
Hi, Sam. Right, you're going to direct me. Okay, so we'll carry on up here.
She agrees to show me her illegal operation so long as she's not identified.
We're here. Yeah.
First stop is the plants which she uses to make the cannabis oils.
Oh goodness.
Right, so Sam, this is the tent with the plants in flower in bud, and as you can see by the sizes of the buds, they're all in various stages at the moment. This is the one that's the most ready.
So this is what, how old? 8 weeks
this
plus?
This is 8 weeks plus
right,
into
okay.
flower.
And these will be taken from here?
And well, they'll be dried here, and then they will be taken to the lab to be processed into oil.
You know, years ago I made a programme about cannabis farms in the UK, and that's exactly what this is, a cannabis farm. The people growing this may be doing it with the best of intention, but nevertheless, it's illegal, it's unregulated. I can't even tell you where it is in Spain because of the amount of trouble they would get into. They would tell you that these plants are the answer.
Next stop is the lab where the oils are made.
This is the bud, these are the branches, and these are the buds that come off of it. And the medicine, the actual, the trichomes that we are extracting are on those tiny little hairs. Can you see the sharp bits, tiny little dots reflecting? Those are called trichomes, and that's where the cannabinoids live.
That's the strongest smelling.
Is it?
The dried cannabis is broken up into small pieces. It's then mixed with a chemical to draw out the active ingredients, before being filtered so that only a liquid remains.
So you are making in this lab medical cannabis, CBD oils, THC, and a lot of it for the UK.
Yep.
And you're shipping it back to the UK somehow?
It's getting back to the UK for the people who need it. And sometimes it doesn't get back, but we make our best efforts to make sure it does.
So, sometimes it doesn't get back because it is...
seized at border force.
The end result is a thick, sticky oil. Marie charges up to €600 per syringe. She says she makes the oils because she'd used cannabis herself for a medical condition and was sick of buying from street dealers.
I wasn't trying to make money. I was a poorly person who was ripped off left, right and centre for cannabis, any cannabis products, whilst I was trying to get myself well again, which is why I taught myself to grow, which is why I taught myself to make oil. And then I'm like, well, I want to help other people. I don't want people suffering in the way I did, because there's nothing worse than buying something, thinking it's going to help you, and it actually makes you worse.
You might have thought the change in the law would have reduced demand for this black market cannabis. Quite the opposite, she says.
Look, the law changed last year.
Yeah.
And what changed for you?
Increasing people asking for THC meds.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because they're suddenly understanding that if the government is saying that we are going to have legal medical cannabis, then it can't be as bad as they said it was.
But the problem that I then see is that once it leaves here...
we've got no control over what happens to it, no.
You've got no control?
No.
And it is being used by desperate parents with desperately sick children.
But we do the best that we can to provide a quality product. It would be sent as a diluted product with recommendations to be very careful with your dosing protocols. But we try not to take too much part of what goes on from there, because I don't want that responsibility. My bit is to help them, but I would rather parents produce their own plants and made their own oil under guidance rather than me having to be part of that process.
Back in the UK, I wonder whether specialists are aware of the lengths some parents are going to.
I think going to street dealers, going into the black market is a bad idea, because these products are not pharmaceutical grade products. We don't exactly know what's in them. We don't know what the constituents, how much THC, how much cannabidiol. There is a very real danger, I think, that these children will be harmed if people do that.
The medicine Cole is getting has been prescribed by a doctor, albeit one in Holland. It's costing Lisa a fortune, and she's breaking the law to get it. She needs a long-term solution, and for her, that means political help.
Dr. Lisa Cameron.
Many thanks, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State will be aware of the case of Cole Thompson, aged 6, in my constituency, who has battled repeated epileptic seizures every night and has had terrible periods of deterioration. I have to say that parents don't have the energy when they're looking after a sick child to battle the system, because it's a postcode lottery and it can't go on.
Yeah.
He's became a bit of a celebrity, is our goal. I just wish it was for something a wee bit nicer than fighting to get him something that he should already have. I feel privileged that people are listening to us and getting our story out there, but at the same time I wish I didn't need to. I would take away it all just to have a healthy wee boy that I could just do normal things with.
Karen and Murray are also in the spotlight. Today she's taking part in a discussion at the Science Festival in Edinburgh.
The government are saying clinicians can prescribe it, and clinicians are saying no we can't.
Yeah.
Clinicians can prescribe it, no we can't. There's just, this is all that's happening.
So thank you very much. And then to our scientists here, what do you think we need to do next?
She's sharing the stage with Professor Mike Barnes, clearly a passionate advocate for medical cannabis.
Probably the whole plant is more effective than isolated bits. And that's what children with epilepsy are finding, for example, that the full extract, as it's called, is works better than individual bits.
Professor Barnes also has a financial interest in the drug. He's involved with several companies that stand to benefit from a growth in the market for medicinal cannabis.
Do you stand to gain financially if the drugs become more widely available?
I have public knowledge that I worked with a company to get an import license into this country, and if I get an import license, I would stand to profit from that, yes. I don't see an issue with that, to be honest, because again, what I've done in the media, I like to think, is promote the use of cannabis for those that need it. And if people want to come into this country, as I said, we need to establish a cannabis industry. And if I can help not only promote cannabis for those people that need it, but promote the industry that has to be behind it and the infrastructure behind it, I don't have a problem with that.
That industry is campaigning hard for cannabis to be used for all sorts of illnesses, not just epilepsy in children.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much. Now what I'm going to need to do is we need some people at the front to hold the banner, and then we need the photos up really high. We need silence, we need slow walking.
The End Our Pain campaign that Lisa and Karen joined is a professional operation. It was founded by lobbyists who wanted to take the cause of medical cannabis on. They part-funded it themselves. Some money also came from a venture capital fund which sees a lucrative future in cannabis. End Our Pain approached Alfie Dingley's mum and helped her successfully campaign to change the law last year. Professor Cross is worried that epilepsy has now become the focus of a wider campaign to legalise cannabis more generally.
I am concerned that the plight of the families is being used for perhaps other agendas. I believe there's a lot of commercial interest amongst different individuals, and I think that makes it even more muddy for the families, to be honest.
The most prominent of those families was Alfie Dingley's.
Hi, Sam from BBC.
His mum is paid by a chain of private clinics that want to prescribe THC, a part-time role that she says has no bearing on her public campaigning.
Are you being manipulated?
Absolutely not. Everything I've ever done for my child is about love, and it's about a love of a mother for a little boy who has severe epilepsy, and I want him to live. I don't want to bury him. I don't want to watch him suffer, and I don't want to watch my family suffer. And I'd find it quite offensive to think that I would be coerced or even led by money.
There are arguably commercial interests behind Professor Cross too. Her department was paid by the drug company GW Pharma to trial Epidiolex, the legal CBD drug available in the UK.
I can honestly say, from my point of view, yes, I have worked with GW Pharma, which is a pharmaceutical company, but I have worked as an investigator and I have worked as an advisor, but have never received any direct payment from the company.
You've never been paid by GW Pharma?
No, any monies that have come for being an investigator have gone to my department, which is normal practice.
So is there a conflict of interest there at all then?
I think it's called a disclosure rather than a conflict of interest. I have that sort of relationship with many different drug companies in evaluating new treatments for children with epilepsy. And I would do the same if I was moving forward with a CBD with THC product.
It's now been more than 3 months since Karen and Lisa first travelled to Holland to buy the cannabis oil which they were convinced would save their sons.
Can you tell me what age you're going to be on your birthday?
7.
7. Oh, that's good. You're going to be a big boy. What's Mummy's name?
Karen.
Oh, that's nice. What does Mummy love?
Me.
I love you.
Sorry I left you. Sorry I left you. Sorry I left you.
Lisa and Karen are adamant they're doing the right thing. But the potential consequences of what they've done are never far from their minds.
What are you frightened of about all of this?
Losing my kids.
Because when this programme is broadcast, you will be outed.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no hiding place for what you've done.
Yeah. I believe that I've kept every documented evidence that this is the right decision for Cole. I am terrified that social work get involved in my life because I've never had any social work involvement, ever. Never had any police involvement. And I hope that I get the backing from the medical professionals that I need to show that, okay, I've made the right decision.
They could make examples of us, but what would be the gain in that? You know, all we are trying to do is help our kids. We're not silly. You know, we're not irresponsible. We've actually done it quite responsibly. We've went and got a pharmaceutical grade product.
We approached Greater Glasgow Health Board responsible for Cole's treatment, but they said they couldn't comment on his case. Lothian Health Board said they couldn't talk about Murray either, but they did agree to discuss the dilemma that doctors find themselves in.
These are really difficult situations, but the most important thing is to remember the child at the centre of this and really make sure that everybody looking after that child knows what's happening and has a chance to discuss openly and transparently what the best things to do for that child are.
If you discovered that a parent was dosing their child, what would the implications be?
The hospital has to take steps to make sure that the child is looked after as safely as possible and discuss that with others who have a relevant interest in safeguarding children.
By that you mean?
So that would depend on the individual set of circumstances, but there would be a child protection issue to be considered in that.
Can you turn a blind eye?
No.
It's the end of May, and Lisa and Karen are back in Holland. They think this might be their last chance to buy the medicine containing THC here. Once the authorities know what they're doing, they could be stopped at the airport. They've dug into their own savings to buy as much as they can while they can.
My one was practically 3,000 euros, just short of 2,947.
Cole's was 1,067 euros.
But it's keeping him healthy. It's keeping him.
I know, I'd sell my house.
Seizures. He's away back at school for an hour a day, you know. So we're on a path to. We're on the right path.
It's hard not to be swept away by what seem to be big changes in the boys. But these families know cannabis is not a cure. Murray has a seizure while we're filming.
It's okay, just lie down, just let Mummy or Helen. It's so cold. So cold in the seizure. I know.
Both boys have so far been too young and too ill to understand what's happening to them. That's changing.
Hey, what is it you want to know?
I have epilepsy.
Do you have epilepsy?
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll always have epilepsy?
I didn't have seizures. I didn't have a dream. Because how?
Well, you do have dreams now.
No.
But your epilepsy won't go away, baby. It'll always be here. But it means that, see, because you've got special medicine, it means that you're going to get better. And even though you'll still have epilepsy, hopefully you won't have any more seizures. And we'll be able to control it a lot better, so it'll be fine.
No. No.
I'm not blinded. I know that Cole will always have epilepsy. He will always have the underlying chance that he's going to have more seizures. This isn't a cure. I get that.
London last week. There's been a development. Lisa's heard of a doctor here willing to write private prescriptions for medicine with THC. She's arranged an appointment for Cole. Karen and Murray also have one. They've come to this private hospital because until there's enough evidence the drug is safe and works, the NHS won't prescribe to them. As the medicine would have to be specially imported, each bottle would cost the mums 3 times as much as in Holland. After an assessment of both boys, the doctor finally gives them what they want: a prescription. For Lisa and Karen, these pieces of paper represent a victory.
For the first time, a medical professional that deals with paediatric neurology has agreed that what I'm doing for Cole is the right thing, and that in itself is huge.
I'm delighted, the same as Lisa, that now we have a prescription. Now what we're doing for our boys is now legal. We're legally allowed to give them this medicine that they so much need, that we've proved that they need. You know, look at them, they're just doing absolutely amazing. So it's a relief. It's another step of the journey. A long way to go still, but really happy. Love you.
Love you, Mum.
New guidelines on cannabis medicines are due in the autumn. There are hopes that trials for medicines containing THC could be underway in the UK soon. Both the UK and the Scottish Government have told us that, as things stand, it will remain up to doctors to decide whether or not to write a prescription for medical cannabis.
There's no doubt that the physicians are a bit in the firing line. All we can do is do the best for our patients, and for that, we don't have a solution overnight, but over the next 6 to 12 months, we hope that we can move forward with a solution.
We are expediting our efforts to try and make sure we get the evidence base out there as soon as possible, so that if there is something that's there that is going to be useful for families and safe, that we're able to say, well, there's the evidence. Yes, it does work. Yes, we're happy that it's safe. Yes, we'll prescribe it.
I can't see him having all these seizures and do nothing, standing back and do nothing, not when I know there's something out there that can help him. How can I just sit back and not do something?
I don't regret anything I've done. I don't think that I made any bad choices, and Cole's living proof.